Okay, let's wrap this up and talk a little bit more about short-term borrowing. Let me give you an example in real life that will hopefully hit home with you and make you think about this if you ever want to start a small business. So let's talk about short-term borrowing. A most common way, temporary cash deficit, is to arrange for a short-term loan. You can go to an unsecured loan, which is a line of credit basically from a bank. You can also do secured loans, which is, you could do accounts receivable, which is called factoring. In selling your accounts receivable, you could do inventory loans. Inventory is collateral. You can go to the commercial paper market, the trade credit. You can go to your suppliers and look for more trade credit there. You can get cash discounts, which would help you as well. There's lots of different ways to do short-term borrowing. But let me tell you this story about how important this is. There was a situation where there was a person who ran an archaeology firm. And the archaeology firm basically digs up bones in burial grounds. In Northern California here, there's a lot of Indian burial grounds. And if you hit a bone in your excavation, you have to properly, human remains, you have to properly take care of it per state law. So archaeologists come in and they uncover the bones, and then they properly identify them, and they log them, and then they properly bury them in an appropriate place so you can go ahead and build your whatever it is. In this case, it was a gas station. And so the gas station starts building ground, and they hit bones, and they bring this person in, and he's new to business, and he's just starting his business, and he kind of falls into this great job, and he says, well, this is great. How do I charge them? How do I get going? And we don't know how big the job is, right? Because we don't know how many bones are there. They know they hit bones at the surface, but could there be 2 bones, or there could be 20,000? We don't know because it's under the surface. So he asked me to help him with this, and I said, well, it's simple. You're going to have to get a time and material contract because you have no idea how many bones are there, and you don't know how many people it would cost, and so on. The second thing is, because you're a small business, and I know how much cash is important, the second thing I imposed on him was I want them to pay you as often as they can. Ask them to pay you at the end of every week with your expenses and how much you spent, how much time and energy you spent. And they wouldn't agree to every week, but they did agree to every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks he would submit his invoice, and they would cut him a check. So he was getting paid every 2 weeks, which is great because his net working capital then was very, very small. And so he could afford this. And he ended up, gas stations, they build those big tanks, and they have to set them down into the ground. Well, every time they hit a bone, they had to stop. And he had 10 people working out there, or 12 people working out there. They had to catalog the bone, and then they'd dig another foot, and they'd have to stop and then catalog the bone. And it was big excavation, right? So in this case, they had 12, 15 people working out there at a given time, 2 weeks worth of pay. He got paid back for it. So you can see that working capital was very small compared to what it could be, because if they didn't pay him for 90 days, it would have been tremendously different. So he goes through this whole job, and he's thinking, this is great, everything's fantastic, and he makes a lot of money. Obviously, he's making a lot of money in this job. And he goes to his next job. And the next job, he bids. He bid a government project that was out of state, and it was going to take 6 months to do. And when do you think the federal government's going to pay you? Do you think they're going to pay you weekly? No, they're going to pay you when the job's done and when they get good and ready to pay you. And so I asked him, I said, wait, how are you going to fund this job? And he thought everyone would pay him ahead of time. He didn't quite grasp the fact that cash flow is everything. And I said, well, you have to fund this whole, good thing you made a lot of money, because you have to fund this whole job for 6 months. And you're not going to get paid 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, maybe a year later to have the money come in to cover those expenses. So you're basically investing in this job to get your money back later. And that's that gap that you have to pay for. And of course, he had spent a lot of the cash that he had in, and he had to turn around and take a mortgage out on his house to be able to fund this contract, which he'd already signed, fund this contract for this 6-month job out there, because he didn't have the working capital to fund the job and then wait for the money to come back in. So as I say, cash is king. You have to have enough money to fund your working capital so you can invest in the job, you can invest where there's no money coming in, and then all of a sudden you start to get a sale, and then that money comes back in. For those of you who are in construction, they often hold a retainer. They hold 10% of the job until the job's completely done and everybody's happy and the owner signs off. Well, if you're one of the first people in doing the plumbing, and then all of a sudden you only get 90% of your money, well, you get 10% of your money maybe a year later, maybe 2 years later. Well, that's your profit. That's your money that you need to grow your business with. So it's very important you pay attention to cash cycles. How much money went out? Then when do I get paid? And in a cash business, it can be very short. If you're running, say, a bar, you buy the booze. Every week you buy new booze, and you've got so much inventory in your booze, and you buy some booze, and you get some kegs of beer and whatever else it is. And then, of course, people come in every week, and they drink it down, and then you buy some more, and they drink it down, and they buy some more. So the cash cycle is fairly short. What about a Boeing aircraft? What about a car? How long do cars sit on lots before they get the money back? Those kinds of things are long cash conversion cycles, and they have to have a lot of funding to be able to fund that gap between when the money went out and when the money comes in. So as I said, cash is king. This is one of many of the reasons why, and why I harp on so much paying attention to how much cash you have, because if you run out of cash, you're out of business, and a lot of times that cash conversion doesn't happen as fast as you think it will. Even in business you think will be great, restaurants, bars, so on, that cash conversion cycle is going to be longer than you think it is. So pay attention to cash. It's very, very, very important, as I've said. And that'll wrap up this section. I told you it was all downhill from here, pretty straightforward. Cash conversion's a piece of cake calculation. So that's really easy. You've come a long way, so this is a nice, easy week for week 6, next week's wrap-up. So it shouldn't be any problem at all. So thanks for staying tuned and staying in here for all these weeks. And you're almost home, so congratulations.